Hey everybody, it's Jen from Two Moms and a Wine Truck coming at you on this Thursday. Can you believe it's already Thursday? It is Thursday! To be honest, I had to look at the calendar because I'm kind of losing track of what day it is and so forth. So we are back again for one of our 8 o'clock segments, and I've got a fun one. This is like hands-on like interaction. Like this is going to be cool. My friend Claire, who owns a farm called Bent Arrow Acres, and you're just a little bit north of us here. She is going to talk all things gardening and planting and container questions and seed and soil questions and so forth. So I'm super excited to have you on. It is springtime and we're all been quarantined to the house a little bit, so we're itching to do some stuff. So Claire, tell us a little bit about yourself and then let's get into talking about some garden topics.
Sure. Thank you. I'm so excited to be here, and I'm really excited to talk gardens with everyone. It's one of my favorite things. I kind of found myself in my garden because I moved up to Rocheville, which is a very small town near Kokomo. After I married my husband, we had lived in Indianapolis for a couple years post-grad, and then he got called up here to help with the family business, and I followed him after our wedding and was kind of lost in this small town. And I was a girl who loved restaurants and food down in Indianapolis, and farm to table was kind of big back in that 2011-12 era. And so I was like, well, we're surrounded by all this land, might as well plant a garden and see what this is like. And so every year the garden grew, then we got chickens and to have our own eggs. And then in 2016, we made it an official farm, and we've participated in farmers markets, and we sell eggs, pasture-raised chicken, pasture-raised pork, grass-fed, grass-finished beef, and a handful of vegetables. Our biggest vegetable crop is, thanks. So it's garlic. I love to grow garlic. That's one of my favorites to have that's super fresh. So I'm really excited to talk gardens with you guys because it's kind of one of those things that I talked about for a long time when I first started blogging. I had a garden blog when I was getting this going in the early days of blogging back in 2013. And I just kind of put it away because the focus became on the farm. But I think it's such an awesome time to start talking about backyard gardens because I think there is some ownership right now in wanting to control our food system.
Oh, sure.
Save a little cash, be a little green. And honestly, for me, there's just something really nice about having something growing and something to plan for and get excited about right now.
Absolutely.
And the garden is a perfect place for all those kind of feel good things right now.
I love, and we do containers, and I know you're going to get into stuff. We do containers, and it's nothing more exciting every morning to go out there, I have my coffee to look to see what's been growing. Like I created that, like it's, and then to bring it in at night to have fresh, there's nothing better than a fresh tomato. Oh my gosh. I love fresh tomatoes. They're fantastic.
I joked with my husband. I was like, this is fine right now. We're fine. But it would be great if it was late August.
I know, exactly. I completely agree. So Claire, where do we need to start? What are kind of the big buckets that we need to be thinking about when we're sitting down and going, okay, I want to do some plants. I want to do some gardening. What do we need to consider?
Sure. The first thing you need to ask yourself is, what do you want to grow? And good things to kind of flesh that out is, what do you like to eat? I think eggplants are the most beautiful vegetable on the planet with their purples and everything. And they're just so like fun. They look like little earrings when they're hanging off a plant, but I hate to eat them. And so I, we'll do one eggplant plant for the gram, of course, every year, but I'm not planting more than one. And so, so think about those things. Don't plant a bunch of things that you don't want to eat. And, think about your family too. If you have a young child who's maybe, or even if you're expecting and you have a baby maybe in 8 months that might be getting into purees and things like that, maybe butternut squash or spinach or things that you want to have on your horizon.
That's a great tip. I wouldn't have thought about that. That's great.
Yeah. So think about the things that you want to eat and that you want to be eating when it's all ready to go. And then also think about, what do you want from this garden? So there I was talking about like preserving it or pureeing it for a baby. Do you want to spend 2 weeks freezing green beans in July, or do you just want to eat them and not have any, for the winter, those kinds of things? Do you want to learn canning and have 20 tomato plants, or do you just want 2 so you can have a great BLT in August? So ask yourself those things that you want to do, and then ask yourself what kind of time you want to give it. Because any gardener will tell you that it's not hard work, but it's definitely work and it requires attention. You got to get out there and weed and water it, things like that. It requires a little bit of love at least every 48 hours. So if you're a new parent or maybe somebody, this is an interesting summer. I don't think we're going to spend a lot of time at a baseball game or something
Right.
like that on a
Well,
weekend.
yeah.
But who knows? And so it might be that one summer where you're like, we got all the time in the world. Let's
Yep.
just go for it. But there may be other people who just need a little bit of grace this summer too. So
That's
think about that
fantastic.
and how much time you want to give it.
So we do three main things because that's what we eat, tomatoes and peppers. We do two, and then we do cucumbers. But my husband created the pots, so we do containers. So
Mhm.
what you can do ground or you can do pots. What are your thoughts, and what path do we want to take with that? What thought consideration?
Sure. The answer is so personal. So a lot of people love container gardens just because it's right there on the patio.
Hmm.
I personally do all my herbs in containers versus having them out in the garden so that they're easy to snip because my patio is right off my kitchen. So if I need a sprig of
Oh.
rosemary for something, it's just right there and I can get it really easily.
Hmm.
And the downside to a container garden is there technically is a limit on how much you could do. You could have a ton of containers,
Yeah.
but it's a great way to get started too.
Okay.
And it's a little, easier might be the good word there just because it's a little more contained. Weeding is a little bit more controlled,
Hmm.
and you don't have to necessarily prep as much too, because if you were to go the raised bed garden route or
Right.
just tilling up a piece of your lawn and then making that your garden, there's just a little bit to be doing right now, honestly, to get ready for that. And that's loosening up the soil by tilling off the grass, making sure any rocks or weeds are just gone. Then you're
Hmm.
going to incorporate some compost, and you can easily get that at any sort of garden store. And just make sure that soil is really moist and loose and ready for some vegetables.
I think also with the containers, we might see an up in that just because if you live in an
Mhm.
apartment or a condo right now
Sure.
and you can't get out and you want to start doing this, I think it's a great way to start learning how to
Mhm.
garden then too. What are your thoughts on that?
Totally. My sister lives in Hoboken, and she has a patio, and they do herbs on their patio. They do
Uh-huh.
tomatoes, and so that's a great way to get the experience, have a little fun, take care of something. Things to consider on a patio or even in your yard is that you want to make sure that the space gets ample sun. Sun is very important to plants. You don't want to scorch them in the sun, but the sun and the heat is, especially here in Indiana, is what's going to really help them grow. If you are putting it in your yard, other things to consider is the access to water, because you don't want to
Yeah.
take a watering can 15 times back and forth if your hose doesn't reach to your garden, unless you really want to get really strong this
Yeah.
summer. Your prerogative.
True.
No, I am not doing that kind of work. I already carry around 2 toddlers. I don't need
Yeah,
that
right.
in my
You're done. I get it.
life. So think about that, and then you want to be able to see it too. So that's what's great about the patio gardening, because you're able to see it. It reminds you, oh yeah, we haven't had rain in 5 days. I need to get out there and water the
Right.
plants. Because if you can't see it, it's out of sight, out of mind. So
Agree.
yeah.
Absolutely. I love that. So I know personally for us, we start with a starter plant versus
Mhm.
seeds. Do you want to talk a
Mhm.
little bit about the difference between that for people that
Sure.
aren't familiar with that?
Yeah, totally. So both are great. So little plant 101, growing things 101, everything starts with a seed and then it becomes a plant.
Yep.
And so what's really nice is that you could buy plants that are already started. And there are so many great options for you if that's the route you want to go. I know here in Indianapolis, we have lots of great growers, whether it's the big box stores to your local farmers who might be having starter plants at the farmers market or for
Right.
curbside pickup at their location. And then if you
And
wanted to,
I'm going to pause you.
yeah,
That's really
cool.
important, Claire, too, because they're still selling. You can start
Yes.
this. We just because we're quarantined in, all of your support the local people. Call them up and tell them what you want. They're going to talk you through it. They'll get everything ready for you, and they'll actually bring it right out to your vehicle. So I think that's a great
Mhm.
point that you mentioned.
Totally. But if you wanted to start from seed, there's lots of great things that you could start from seed. I like to start things like kale and lettuce. They're the colder weather vegetables from seed because they can start going out in the garden here in a couple weeks. But then like things like your tomatoes and peppers, they're fun to start from seed, but you probably want to get them going right now because they have a long time to get to the point where they're going to produce the fruit when it's still really warm in the summertime. Because if you start to plant them a little too late, then it's going to be into September and the temperatures are just too chilly sometimes to support that kind of growth. So what you're going to see on a seed packet, and I've got a few right here, is how many days it takes to germinate. I don't know if you guys can see this, but this one is a lettuce seed packet. And it says 83 days. So that's how long it's going to take from planting the seed until it produces some food. And so 83 days is right now just before 4th of July, basically. So I did 100 days in Google this morning just to know what I was talking about. So, and that was July 10th.
So you mentioned, because it's more of a winter hardier, so lettuces, what, can you give us some examples of some other ones that we could start right now?
Sure. You could put green beans in the ground right now. They'll do just fine. I'm trying to think. Carrots, beets, radishes you could probably get going right now, or at least in the next couple weeks. And things like green beans, carrots, and beets is you don't want to start those from seeds in a seed tray. And we'll talk about seed trays in a moment. You want to do those directly in the ground because they're the kind of vegetable that doesn't want their roots disturbed. And so they'll just grow right into the ground. And whereas something like this is basil right here that I started from a seed. And what I will do when I put these into the ground is just pull it out, and you can disturb the roots a little bit, and then dig a little hole and put them into the ground, and then they'll just continue growing from the root system.
Interesting. So yeah, so that's really, what do you have there? Because I'm pointing, and notice my finger pointing toward you.
So I will show you, this is just one seed tray. So I have started a handful of seeds from seed. And so this is a seed tray, and it's got one liner that has drainage holes here, individual little containers for each seed, and then a larger tray. And what I like to do is water from the bottom versus the top when they're in the seed trays, because you risk too much of disturbing it. So I'll pull this back and then pour water into the bottom. And so when you get it started, you'll want to just have a plain one. So I'm going to have a little crop shift here, and I'll show you a plain one.
Yeah.
So what I would do, this is one, and what I've done is just filled it all with seed starting soil. And those are things you can usually find at a big box store or your local nursery. I can't help but wonder if some of your local small farmers or even seed supplies would have something like that. Thinking of like the urban farmer in Westfield, he's got tons of tools, things like that. So, and he might even have trays like this too. So you water it from the bottom, and you have to do it a couple times to get the soil moist. And you don't want it soaking wet. You just want it to have that nice texture of soil. And then what you will do is take whatever you want to plant, and I'm going to we'll do a pumpkin. So these are those kind of blue pumpkins, you know, those like Cinderella blue pumpkins.
Fun.
So what you're going to do is look at the packet, because it's got the instructions right there on any seed packet. And so it says it's about a 1 inch deep is how deep I want to go. You can easily just use your finger, or you can use the back of a pen or an eraser on a pencil and kind of measure that 1 inch deep. I like to put 2 in each little pod on your tray here, just to make sure that you do at least get one, because you don't want to waste that precious commodity of your seed tray. And so you just place them right in. I'm going to slide some of these out. There are these little pumpkin seeds.
Oh, yeah.
And they look just like the pumpkin seeds.
I was just going to say, you roast them and throw them in the oven and add a little salt to them, and you're good to go.
Yeah, and what's a fun fact about pumpkins, if you save your seeds and dry them out, then you could actually just plant your own pumpkins. We actually fed pumpkins to our pigs a couple years ago after the end of the season, and they ate some of it and stomped around in it. And then we had a pseudo pumpkin patch the next year because the seeds had just fallen into the ground and done it themselves. So,
That's
and
fun.
even just like rotting pumpkins will do the same thing. So it's kind of crazy. So you just drop them right in there and then cover it back up.
Uh-huh.
And one of the most important things after you do a whole section is to label it so you know what you just grew. Because sometimes things do look the same. So you'll write, pumpkins on it or whatever. And
that's a great point. You just get done, you're like, oh, what did I just plant in this row over here? Yeah.
Well, and then it all starts showing up and you're like, is that a butternut squash or a cucumber? Because a lot of things really do look the same when they're getting started. So you want to know what you're working with. So fill the whole tray. You can divide this into as many as you want. Maybe you don't want 60 pumpkin plants, things like that. You could do just a row to have 5 or 6 pumpkin plants in your garden. Do the next row as tomatoes, do the next row as lettuces, do the next row as kale, and then you'll be able to just put this in a sunny, warm place in your house. A lot of these seed trays come with domes too. That's just a clear dome, and I wish I had grabbed one before I sat down, but it's just a clear plastic dome. You'll want to keep that on your seed tray in the beginning until you start to see growth, because it'll just help keep it that much more warm to help that seed germinate.
That's fantastic. And then you just take them from there, and then you just take them into, whether it's a container or it's your actual ground that you're going to put them in, the actual earth.
Yep.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah. So when we put them into our garden to help with weeds, we actually plant in plastic. It's this tarping that we've burned holes into it to help suppress the weeds. And so we have those, but we've also done just putting straw down around the plant just to kind of help suppress the weeds. We've had years where we just pull weeds, and those are hard years, but it's good moral character, I suppose.
It does. And you're touching the earth and you're having a good day. Yes, absolutely.
If you have teenagers, it might be a great activity for them this summer.
Yeah, right. I was going to say, who doesn't want to go pull weeds this summer? Yes, absolutely. Well, this has been very helpful, Claire. So for our audience out here, do you have any suggested websites they can go and reference, or any type of knowledge that can be shared in that term?
Sure. I mean, Google's awesome. We're so lucky to have that resource. And my husband and I have learned so much on YouTube just about gardening.
Yeah.
And so one of our favorite channels on YouTube is The Urban Farmer. He's been very helpful. There are great podcasts too. I love the library. I know it's tricky right now to be able to get books and things like that, but one of my favorites for flowers, if flowers are more your thing, is Floret Flower Farm too. This year I've actually planted a lot of sunflowers and cosmos and zinnias, and I can't wait to get dahlias on the ground because I feel like I just need a little happy throughout the rest of the next 6 months.
Absolutely.
So that one's great for flowers. And the Old Farmer's Almanac always has great tips. So
wonderful. Well, Claire, thank you so much. I think that people are going to really appreciate and enjoy this, because it is time and we need to do something. And this is kind of, for me, this is like self-care. I'm growing something, I'm taking care of it, I'm watching it, and then it's the fruits of your labor, a few months out. And I think it's right now in our world, the way that we're going, I think it's a beautiful concept. If even if it's a container plant, do what you can do, be happy, bring some plants into the world.
Sure. A garden, I think it will challenge you. It will give you an easy win too. It's going to give you both of those things. It gives you a little bit of an element of faith too in something, because you are putting it in the ground and hoping for the best. And, it's kind of special in that way.
I love it. Well, thanks again, Claire. Really appreciate it. Ben Arrow Acres. If anybody, they've got chickens, they've got eggs, they've got beef. So definitely give it a shout out. I'll put a link down here at the bottom. Thanks so much, Claire, for being on tonight. Really greatly appreciate it. And enjoy the rest of your Thursday.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for connecting everyone too. This is really special.
Absolutely.